Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Cmps3012. I am Mrs. La-Dene Forrester Lambe, and we are here in Chapter 5. On the screen, you'll notice that we're in the theory week, but we have fallen behind in the course due to the hurricane that just passed. I'd like to share with you some adjustments that have been made and some corrections that we have now that the university has had a chance to meet and go over the plan for the rest of the semester. So as we go through, I'll be sharing some modifications that you need to pay attention to and some adjustments. All right, so in this chapter, you will be going over the content so that you can complete your forum. Some of you have already done that, and that forum is due on Sunday of this week. One update is that you will no longer be required to sign up for the peer review platform. Due to the limited time, management has decided that it makes sense for us to scrap the peer review, and it's looking at the time we have left. It will allow you to simply focus on your research. It's just that you won't have the feedback of your peers as you would have done in the past. All right, so if you didn't get a chance to do this, no worries, you're not required to do it anymore. So that's one modification that you need to be aware of. However, what remains constant is that you still have this forum to complete, you still have this test to complete, and of course, you still have the practical project, which will become due on the next week, the following week. All right, so there are some benchmark presentations here as well for your research project, just in case you weren't aware of those. There are 3 of them that you can pay attention to, and they give you a brief breakdown of what should be included. We'll be looking briefly at the practical project number 5 assignment. And as usual, I normally ask a reader from the class. So let's ask Chelsea to read for us this evening.
Good night. Practical project number 5, evaluating hardware and software. You have been hired as a management information system consultant by the University of Belize to assist with a budget of their Department of Math, Physics, and Information Technology. Ensure the budget is created in Google Sheets and look professional. The university would like for you to obtain pricing information and capabilities on hardware and software for 20 staff, 6 computer labs and 1 physics lab, and 5 general classrooms. Create an I don't know that word they miss.
Organogram.
On an organogram to better visualize the MPIT department. Note the department has a dean, a chair, a secretary, 6 information technology lecturers, 8 math lecturers, 3 and physics lecturers. In addition, the department has access to 6 computer labs that house 20 students daily, 4 Belmopan City, 1 Punta Gorda Town, 1 Belize City. It also has 1 physics lab and access to 5 general classrooms. Using the internet, Amazon.com, getting pricing of 145 desktop computer systems, computers, monitors, keyboards, and mouses. After finding the prices online, make sure the price is shipping to Belize, the duty or taxes, and the amount of time it takes to ship to Belize. Contact local vendors to see how much it costs to purchase locally. If you believe an employee doesn't require a desktop, be sure to justify your response. The same applies for a printer. In addition, obtain pricing for printers, a network color printer or a monochrome printer, or both for the different office location. Be sure to include toner replacements for the respective printers. Note that each desktop system must satisfy the minimum specifications shown in the table below.
All right, thank you, Chelsea. So we have an example here for you to look at. And for those of you who like to go shopping online, this is a good opportunity for you to use those skills that you've been sharpening over the years. So you find out the cost of the item, what's the cost to ship, and you're looking for cost-effective solutions where necessary. But in addition to that, as Chelsea read, you're also determining what products are necessary for the situation that you have presented in front of you. So they told you how many labs, how many classrooms, and you have to know, as this consultant, determine what are the required devices for the situation that's presented. Now, it will take some brainstorming from your team, and I will allow you in your groups to read the rest of the instructions for the assignment. The instructions are pretty long, but they are there for you as a guide. You have an idea of what you're working on. Now, this will be your final group project with the exception of the research project. And we're going to be spending a little time tonight going over chapter 4. And I'd like to walk you through some of the steps. Like I said, we've been getting updates from the university, from the course coordinator. Some things came in a little late. But as I get information, I try to share it with you. So one of those documents that I'd like to share is a section of your course outline. And you'll find this course outline in the link at the top of the course under course instructors and facilitators. The course outline has been there. And the section that is pertinent to the research has the instructions there. So for those of you not sure how many pages are required, your document should not exceed 20 pages now. This is an update. It used to be 15 pages. So you're required to do this research in the area of management information system. You know that you're submitting a written report, and this is how long your document should be. So no less than 15 to 20 pages. We're not expecting you to have 21 or 30 pages. That's too much. And that includes your references, your cover page, your abstract, everything. Your groups are responsible for solving a problem that exists within our society as it relates to management information system. Now, there's a little guideline here, and we're going to spend the time looking at what each of the chapters entails. For chapter 1, you need to get a little checklist, and this works as a checklist for you. Have you stated the importance of your research or the chosen topic? Have you stated the originality of your research? Have you stated what's known and unknown about the topic? What about the objectives of your research? Have you mentioned the goals of your research? If any of these are missing, then you have a guide in terms of what needs to be updated and included in that introduction. One of the good things about your teams is that most teams have 5 persons, with the exception of a few that has 3 persons. And in the case of those who chose to work on their own, then it's just you. But we asked you to work in teams because what you could use is a divide and conquer approach. Some of you have started working on the chapters, but it's good to have persons facilitate or responsible for a section. So if you have one of your team members that is going to be responsible for the introduction, then the rest of the team can edit and check to ensure that that chapter has met all the requirements. You can look at it with fresh eyes and make sure that nothing is missing and that it's cohesive, right? Then your literature review follows. So even though you have 5 different persons dividing and conquering this document, it needs to flow. It mustn't look like you had 5 separate authors, right? So it means that you would be communicating, you'd be sharing your ideas, and then you'd have someone assigned to edit and fix it up as the need arises. The literature review is the hardest part. And we spent most of the time talking about this, telling you what types of articles to look for. And there are 2 main checks that we have here. Have you stated the most important work done in this area, followed by the research, and who has conducted the research? So don't just tell us the important work. Tell us what work was done, who did the research, What did the research entail? And then the theoretical structure. This is very important as well. Are you still hearing me clearly?
Yes, miss.
Yes, miss.
I was wondering because it's showing that I'm signed out. My internet has been wonky this week. All right, so the theoretical structure, I know that most of you have this part covered, so I'm not so worried about this. But is it used, have you used it, and the ways in which the researcher carried out the task? So as you read your articles, you would have found out that some of these researchers didn't just use the La-Dene and McLean model. They might have used TAM, which is Technology Acceptance Model. They might have used other models. So write about them. Tell us about them. How do they compare to the La-Dene and McLean? You know, just tell us what was their research about. How did they use the model, the framework? That's another word for theoretical framework. They might use model. They might use theoretical structure. They might use theoretical model. They all mean the same thing. How did the researchers analyze and solve the issues? Write about it. What did they do? What did they discover? All right, so this is a typo here. And what were some of the limitations that they experienced? How does your study improve upon what they discovered, as well as their limitations? All right, so these are some things to go through. Then the methodology. In your methodology, you're looking at the process that you will use to carry out the research. For you guys, we told you what your process would have been, so all you have to do is write it down, and you already have your survey generated, so that would have gone in your appendix. You explain how your methodology is different from those that you found in the previous literature. Explain the assumptions, the limitations of previous literature. Some other things to include: provide chronological order for your study. For example, if you developed a model to solve the problem, propose and kindly explain the model in addition to the ways in which different pieces of the model or the structure works together to achieve the objectives. Also, state the robustness of the theoretical structure. Chapter 4 is where we're at, and I'll be walking you through the data analysis chapter tonight. It's a very short demonstration, and like I said, find someone in your group who has different strengths, right? So if your strength is data, you're very good at working with Excel, spreadsheets, maybe that's the whole class, but there's one person who likes it more than the rest of you in your group, maybe that person could work on chapter 4. Explain how your model helps to solve the problem you proposed. Explain the robustness of the empirical results. Explain the consistency of data. This chapter leads us right into chapter 5 because from the data, you'll be able to make your conclusions. It's the easiest part. And then you'll state your major findings from your study. Maybe you found that from your data, one of the areas employees responded to more positively than some of the other areas. But whatever your findings are, you should be able to explain how you were able to achieve the objectives that you stated earlier in chapter 1. State the implications of your study. How is this going to add value to society? How is it going to add value to the organization? Why was this research important, right? State your contributions to this area along with the limitations of your study. You might have had limitations because of people responding very slowly. So you had to wait, and it might have set you back in some of the things that you had to do. And then, of course, state the recommendations for future direction of the study. Some of your references would be journal articles, you might use books, you might use web pages, but please cite everything. If you don't cite it, then that's called plagiarism because it's taking somebody else's work. And at this level, we're really using the work of other people to create inferences, to create solutions to problems that are existing in society. In your appendix, that's where I should see your survey questions. That's where I'll see your data sets and your charts. And these will all be in a Word document. So you can work on it in Google Docs or find a collaboration tool that works for you. And when you download it, you're downloading it not as a PDF, but as a Word document that is editable so that we can make our notes as lecturers. Any questions so far?
Hi, Miss. Good night.
Good night.
The page count, page between 15 to 20 pages, does that also include the appendix?
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's your cover page, your references, your appendix, everything is in there. Yes.
One other question, in terms of the formatting of the paper, would we be able to put the paper in 2 columns instead of rows, like do it in columns?
You will be given a template to work with. So all you need to do is to ensure that it meets the criteria there. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So those are very good questions though. And yes, you'll be given a template. The template is going to have the section where you'd put in your title. The font sizes and everything are already set. So you need to ensure that you don't modify those. All right, it remains as is. All you're doing is putting in your data instead, your information instead. Okay, before we proceed, I'm going to do attendance a little differently tonight because of time. So those of you who are here, kindly just type your name in the chat.
Good night, Miss. Sorry to interrupt. Can you please share the link to that Word document, the MIS project, here in the group chat? I just want to bookmark it on my browser. Right. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. Oh, my internet. Just a minute. Okay, so this is here as a resource for students, and you can always come back to it. It's prepared by our course coordinator and instructor, Dr. Ryan. You've been hearing him in most of your lectures. And I believe that it's a very useful resource for those of you who want to complete this project successfully. All right, so the data analysis section, Dr. Ryan's group just a minute, I'm using one of the surveys that he shared, one of the data analysis examples, and then I will also use one from our class just to show you the difference. So they chose a different topic than the one we were using. Some stuff was communicated a little differently, but for those of us who did the surveys, what we're really trying to do is find the success of information systems. His group was looking at the success of information systems specific to those operating now in this post-pandemic time. So as you know, in your survey, you would have had different categories of questions. So let's see if I can find Moodle survey final version. Yes, here it is. Okay, so this is a survey that he shared with me on Moodle, and there we had different sections, right? We had background information, information quality, system quality, etc., right? So these are the components that we were looking at. And then you had your data that you collected. So I'm using one group survey just for demonstration, and I hope they don't mind. So let's look at the first category. I've skipped the background section because in the document that they shared, it wasn't included, but you should include that in your data collection as well, right? Even though it won't go in the histograms that we're using, this data collection, this background information part, sorry, is going to be represented in a table. And in our next session, I'm going to talk more about that. But what I'm interested in looking at right now is the other components of our theoretical framework. So in this survey, you had background information. And like I said, this part of the survey is going to be represented in a table form. That's all you're doing, just showing us in a table. The other sections, information quality right down to perceived net benefits, will be represented as histograms. So it is important to include them. Now, what I love that this group did, they color coded it for me, so I didn't have to go and check how many questions were in each section. But if you didn't get to do that, that's okay. What you would do is go to your survey tool and count the number of questions you had. In this case, 7 questions were under information quality. So we would have gone over and counted, and then you create an empty column right after. And in that empty column, you would give it a label for information quality, and then we're finding the average of all of the values in this row. So we use the average formula. We're using average equals, I have from G3 to L3, and then we just copy that formula all the way down, right? So we're doing that process for each of the categories we have here. You're simply finding the average for each of these. You're going to see in a minute why that's important. And whoever is doing the data collection in your group, I hope they're paying attention, right? So again, you find the average for each of the different areas that we're assessing. When you've done that, then we can go ahead and create our histograms. So we select the column, and these histograms are going to be for all of the averages that we just found, right? So we go over to Insert, Chart, because that's what I'd like to insert. For some of you, you might not get a histogram right away when you select, and I hope you're seeing all of my screen. Are you seeing this section called Chart Editor?
Yes, Miss.
Okay, great. So over there, if you're not seeing a histogram, you might see another type of chart. Just look for the one that says histogram. And then you'd be able to click on the Customize tab right next to Setup, excuse me. And in histogram, usually we set the bucket size to 1 so that we get, a better visual of how the data is represented. And then you can even use the dividers so you could see what's happening there. Now, this is going to let us know for perceived net benefits how our respondents rated the systems. So remember in your survey, you had options from 1 to 7. Some of you had 1 to 5. Some of you did it differently, right? Now, what this is doing is letting you know how many scored high. For example, 5 would be a high score. They said about 6 persons said that the system had really good net benefits. And then you had a group of them that was probably neutral. Then you had a average group, and then 2 persons, 3, this looks like 3 persons scored that, okay, it wasn't all that great. They gave it a low score. So down here, you'll be able to see the scores. So this should be starting at 1, and then you continue. In this case, it started at 2. And of course, you can do this for each of the categories that we have. So this I only did for perceived net benefits for demonstration tonight. But when you click on the little dots here, you're able to do several things to the chart. You can download the chart, you can publish it, you can copy it, you can move it to its own sheet. And I just clicked move to its own sheet for demonstration. When you've moved it to its own sheet, then you're able to do that for each of the charts. So you'll have one for perceived net benefits, one for use, one for each of the categories that were listed there. When you have those now, that is how we would evaluate each of the sections that you saw here in this survey. And of course, your surveys would look different, but they have the same subtopics, right? So we have user satisfaction, use, etc. Each of these is going to have their own histogram. Does that make sense?
Mister, those charts you want to see in the appendix, or should we include it in the data analysis section?
That's going to be in your data analysis section.
Okay.
Okay, so as we go back to the document, okay, here. So one other thing that you're going to do is to find the average of the averages. So this group went ahead and did it already. But all you're doing, now that you've found the average of each of these rows, you're finding the average of the column of averages. So here, okay, this one isn't correct. So let me just fix that one quickly, just for demonstration. So this would be the average of everything here. And then that's what we would use there. So you're creating a different chart for this one, all right? And that chart is going to be showing us what was the score, the average score for perceived net benefits, for use, and so on. So it's the average of the averages. So you're creating histograms for them independently, and then you're creating one histogram representing each of the categories together, if that makes sense. All right, so that was just for you guys to have an idea, more or less. Now, what you do in that chapter is to explain what these charts are saying in words. So you'll be able to say, based on the responses, you saw that there was a higher positive response to user satisfaction of the system, or you might find that it might have been, the negative response might have been higher, but whatever you're observing from the data that, from the graphs that you've now prepared, you can write about those so that we can understand what's happening and how the survey was able to evaluate the system that the organization uses. All right, and that's why we say this is one of the easier chapters, and it takes you right into chapter 5. Chapter 5 is just where you come up with your conclusions, you state your major findings. Maybe you saw some strengths or weaknesses that were noteworthy. That's where you would write them in chapter 5. But here in chapter 4, tell us what you're seeing with the charts. Tell us about the consistency of data. Explain how your model helped to solve the problem that was proposed. And then any conclusions you make, jot them down for chapter 5. Okay, so I really wanted to go through that. I know we have presentations tonight, so we're going to allow our presenters to go ahead, but I wanted to share this with you just for persons who are still a little confused. All right, so let's see who we have tonight. All right, so we have Kerwin and Sandra. Oh, Shamika, Kerwin, and Sandra. All right, so I don't think all of you will get to go tonight, but whoever doesn't get to present, I'm going to just ask that person to share their presentation with me as a video after we end our session tonight. All right, so Kerwin, you can go ahead. Let me just stop sharing.
So are you able to see my screen?
I can see your.
Good night, Miss. Good night, class. Tonight I will be presenting on Netflix building a business in the cloud. So a summary of Netflix. In the past 20 years, Netflix has gone from a fledgling DVD rental service to the single top source of bandwidth consumption on the internet. Find out how Netflix has formed a partnership with Amazon Web Services that allows it to meet its unprecedented levels of demand. So what is cloud computing? According to the video, cloud computing is the delivery of on-demand computing services via the internet on a pay-as-you-go basis. So instead of like you buying, owning, and maintaining physical data centers and servers, you can actually access technology services such as computing power, databases, and storage from a cloud provider. So now we move on to the video case questions. The first question is, what event convinced Netflix to switch to a cloud-based service? So the event that caused Netflix to switch to a cloud-based service was due to a major corruption in its database, which caused problems among its customer delivery service in 2008. So the company experienced trouble with shipping DVD discs to the customers, and this was what made Netflix utilize a system that was strong enough to handle the large amount of data that their system used. The second question was, what is Chaos Monkey and why is it important for Netflix and its use of AWS? So Chaos Monkey is a piece of software that randomly terminates instances in a distributed production environment to highlight what engineers need to focus on to make those systems as resilient as possible. Chaos Monkey is a software tool that was developed by Netflix engineers to test the resiliency and recoverability of their Amazon Web Services, also known as the AWS. So basically, the software simulates failures of instances of services running with the auto-scaling groups, also called the ASG, and this is by shutting down one or more of their virtual machines. When they test how the system responds to failure conditions, then they will be able to identify and fix failures before they become public face outage. So why is it important for Netflix and its use of AWS? Well, it is important for Netflix and its use of AWS because it was designed to see how well a system shifts its resources when there is a computer outage, and it also enforces better proactive engineer practices. The third question is, why is it important for Netflix that AWS has multiple availability regions? So it helps to expand and also broadens their business. How does it help to expand their business? Well, AWS works across 12 regions, and Netflix has options to shift the web traffic to another region if one or more used by it goes down or faces technical malfunctions. And this is to ensure that the service endures to its customers. The last question is, do you watch TV or movies on Netflix? Have you encountered varying quality of service at different times of day? So yes, both Netflix and TV are where I watch movies, but Netflix is where I prefer to spend my time. I have come across many different kinds of services with differing levels of quality, and the most frequent ones are those that lag or buffer. In my opinion, the reason it happens when using data to access Netflix is because the network is not always connected, unless we download the movies, which not everyone likes to do. So relating the cloud computing to Belize. So we have a large or mid-sized household consulting firm in Belize that are highly specialized in cloud computing, consulting, and implementation services. Of course, these are groups with a cloud computing consulting practice and which are specialized in cloud computing consulting. To add to this, there are many consulting organizations in Belize that offers cloud computing services, and this is to assist their customers and make it more easier and cheaper for them to use. They also offer guides and supports to organizations in Belize in regards with the process, their systems, and also the business models and so forth. So key takeaways from this presentation. The first pointer, in early 2008, Netflix had problems with its database, which caused problems with the customer delivery service, but soon after they utilized a system strong enough to withstand the large amount of data their system used. The second pointer, cloud computing allows you to pay only for how much you use with much easier and faster provision for scaling up or down. With this, the AWS also allows clients to pay for only the computing power that they use, and this also allows them to both save money and scale with demand. The last pointer is that AWS provides a full set of cloud computing and storage services for companies of all sizes, from small businesses to the literal biggest streaming sites on earth in Netflix. Thank you. I have now come to the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Kerwin. Could we have our next presenter, please?
Miss, I did try share my screen, but I'm not sure if I'm doing it correct. So I'll present next.
All right, let's have our next presenter. Who comes after Sandra? Let's see. Shamika? If you could share your PowerPoint, Sandra, then I can share it for you so you could present.
Miss, I put it in the chat.
Okay, just a minute.
Okay.
Okay, you'll just have to tell me when to change the slides. I'm gonna start sharing in just a second.
Good evening, class. I'll be presenting on Deutsche Bank. Did information system cause the bank to stumble? Next slide. Okay, so the outline of this presentation is a summary and the answers to the questions. So Deutsche Bank is one of the largest bank in Germany and is considered to be one of the world's top financial companies. It was founded in the year 1970 with 2,425 branches worldwide. It offers financial products such as retail, commercial banking, and services for mergers, also for mortgages, credit cards, life insurance. It holds the world's largest portfolio of derivatives totaling to about $46 trillion. So the bank was doing great until the 2008 financial crisis, where the bank was offering selling residential mortgages securities to people who were having financial difficulties, and many of them were unable to pay when the inflation burst in 2007. So this was a problem for the bank, because in order to repay loans, the bank needed a specific amount of capital, but due to the unpaid mortgages, the bank didn't have enough capital to cover their losses. So as a consequences, the bank was forced to pay $7.2 billion to the US regulator. Next slide, please. So although they survived the 2008 crisis, the bank was still struggling with tremendous changes in the banking industry. So one of the problems that Deutsche Bank was, they submitted incomplete and untimely credit default swap data. They failed to properly supervise employees who were responsible for these reporting, and they also lack an adequate business continuity and recovery plan. So the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, they complained that the bank reporting system experienced a system outage, which prevented them from doing reports for 5 days. They also said that the bank was using antiquated technology, which was one of the reasons why the bank was unable to provide the correct information to run business properly. Poor information was caused by many problems since the 2008 financial crisis. So Deutsche Bank has struggled to regain profitability and stability. In 2015, the bank announced a multi-billion-dollar deal to simplify its IT infrastructure to a modern technology and to launch new products and services. Next slide. So the questions. So the question number 1 says, identify the problem described in this case study. What management, organization, and technology factors contributed to this problem? So the main problem with Deutsche Bank was that they ignored and neglected to upgrade its information system with source of profit and growth. They also incomplete information and swap data were not persistent. So the management factor is that information was not allowed to be shared easily among departments or provide senior management with a consistent overview of bank operations. Organization factor, which contributed to this problem, was that the bank employed a strategy of pitting teams against each other to spur them on instead of furthering encourage the use of different systems, which made it difficult to manage information properly. Another factor was the technology, which was the major role of the bank's problems. The use of old technology and poor information system was what caused all the problems that the bank was facing. Next slide, please. So the next question is, what was the role of information technology at Deutsche Bank? How was IT related to the bank's operational efficiency, decision-making capability, and business strategy? So the role of IT at the bank was to ensure business process to run smoothly and to keep up with changing consumer expectation. It enables the daily banking operations more efficiently and accurately. IT also helped to cross-examine key factors, which has resulted in an improved overall position and operational efficiency. So because of the old information that the bank was using, their information about the bank was inaccurate, which resulted in bad decision-making. So, and with the implementation of IT, the bank would have better relationship with their stakeholders and improve their overall business strategy. Next slide, please. So the next question was Deutsche Bank using technology effectively to pursue its business strategy? So the bank was not using technology effectively because in the case study, it says that the US regulators have identified Deutsche Bank antiquated technology as one of the reasons why the bank was not always able to provide the correct information for running its business properly and responding to regulators. So, and even though this bank had undergone expansion, they had expansion, but they failed to integrate modern information system. So the last question is, what solution for Deutsche Bank was proposed? How effective do you think it will be? So the bank, Deutsche Bank would, they proposed that they would go to cloud computing infrastructure where it will run its information system on HP remote computer centers, and they will provide computing services, hosting, and storage. So thousands of applications and functions will be shifted from Deutsche Bank's mainframes to HP cloud computing services. So automating manual processes will promote efficiency and better control, because before the bank was entering information manually, and I believe that this will be effective because some of the key benefits for using cloud is speed and security. So that's the end of my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. All right, so our last presenter is Shanika. Let me make sure I have the name right. Shamika. All right, so Shamika, are you here? All right, I'm not hearing from Shamika. If she's in any of your groups, kindly let her know that she needs to record her presentation and send it to me. Okay, so I'm going to open up the floor for any questions from you guys. I just want to remind you that in the data analysis section, ensure that the headings are displayed for each of the charts that you use. As you save your data, the naming convention that is best to use is the final name it final research, followed by the sector. For example, if you're using the banking sector, find out the sector that your organization falls into, if it's agriculture, fisheries, whatever, and then your group number. Make sure that your spreadsheet, like we were looking at tonight, is shared with all of your group members, and you can also share it with me so that I can see what you're doing, what you're working on, and offer assistance where necessary. Okay, I did promise you to show you what the other groups were doing. They also created their table. They're doing a different research topic, and they did the same thing we did. They found each of the categories, they found the averages, and then after finding the averages of each category, they created the histogram for each in different sheets. All right, for you guys, what you'll be doing is downloading these charts, these histograms, as a PNG file or some image file so that you can paste it in the Word document that you're submitting. All right, that submission will become due at the end of this semester. We collect those documents on the 27th of this month. Now, the next thing that they did was to find the average of each of the averages. So in this case, they just did a short example. Just a few of the categories are here. They found the averages of those averages, put them in their separate table, and then a histogram for just those averages was created. So this gives just an example of what I was saying earlier. And again, all of this will be shared. So the extra charts will be shared in your appendix section, and you can refer to them, while you can emphasize only the charts that were significant to your study in the data analysis section. You don't need to include all of them in there, but be sure to have them in your appendix, and you can refer to them, figure 1, figure 2, appendix section 1, etc. All right, so that's one of the ways that you can keep yourself organized as you're working on that. Any questions about the data analysis? No? All right, so for those of you who came in after we took attendance, if you haven't written your name in the chat as yet, please do so now. And that will be it for this evening. And I will see you guys when next week. So work on the data analysis. Yes, Kyra?
Could I stay back just probably 10 minutes or two? I just wanted to clarify a couple things with the project.
Okay, I'm meeting with a group after right after this class, but if they don't mind, you can just ask your question then.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so the class is dismissed, and those who need to see me after, I will be online just to assist you.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
As it relates to the practical project, some of our group members already got grade, but some of us haven't.
Okay, I haven't resumed grading you guys since the hurricane. So that's probably why you haven't seen yours as yet. But once your submission was in, then you don't need to worry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, so because we were without power for a while, once we get all sorted, then I should get back to that. Yeah, so you guys will be seeing grades if that's the question you have, and you're not seeing it for your group. As yet, your grades have been done, but again, I have to schedule it to put in the grades for each individual member. Yeah.
Thank you, Miss. Good night.
Sure, good night.